Hello everybody, what's going on? So we've got Diablo 2 Resurrected in just a few hours at the time of this guide being uploaded, so to no surprise here, we will be shortcutting this guide a little bit here and there. For example, when it comes to the Barbarian, there will be 3 builds you can choose from when progressing on your Barb. You have the Frenzy build, the Whirlwind build, and the Singer build. However, as I mentioned, because Diablo 2 Resurrected is coming out in literally hours after this guide releases, I decided to make the decision to focus specifically on Whirlwind and Frenzy because these are usually the most popular reasons that people choose to play a Barbarian. The Singer is a cool build, however, so I will definitely be covering it at some point in the future. It just won't be in this guide. So overall, I would say Frenzy and Whirlwind aren't that much different. They are using the same supporting skills such as Howl and Battle Cry and Battle Orders. However, both also depend on gear, so you will have to do some nightmare farming before going into Hell mode. The main difference with Frenzy is that Frenzy focuses on dual wielding and striking a single target, whereas Whirlwind prefers to use two-handed weapons, and it spins to win by striking all targets in its path. However, regardless of the build you choose here, you will be leveling with the Frenzy build, which is double swing, until you unlock Frenzy at level 24, or respec into Whirlwind at some point either level 30 or later. Alright, so let's jump right into it here. We've got the Barbarian build here, the Frenzy build on the left, and then when you decide to respec into Whirlwind, if that's your choice, you have the Whirlwind build on the right, and then sort of endgame, you have the sword version of Frenzy at the bottom right as well. So with the Frenzy build, you want to focus on Mace Mastery first, because when you're progressing your weapons, Mace weapons are much more popular and stronger, and that's highly what I recommend. I don't recommend using axes or swords or really any other weapon out there. So that's what I recommend. So going from level 2 to 4, including your Den of Evil skill quest reward, you want to put all of those points into Mace Mastery because Mace Mastery and all other weapon masteries will give you critical strike on that weapon type. So for example, if you were using a scepter or a mace or a staff, you will have a chance to deal double damage. In addition to this, the Mastery will also give you extra damage and attack rating in addition to that critical strike. So simply put, Mastery is super important, which is why you want to max out a specific type so you can get more bonuses out of it. Now, once you hit level 5, you want to put a point into Bash because it's required to unlock Double Swing at level 6. From level 7 and 8 as well, you want to put a point into Double Swing because the more points you put in, the less mana Double Swing costs. And early on, mana is a pretty big deal with the Barbarian. So putting a few points into Double Swing, you should be perfectly fine with Double Swing in addition to just using a mana potion here and there. From level 9 to 13, you want to pick up Mace Mastery again, so you can completely try and max that out as early as you can. And then from level 14, you want to start building up your support skills. For example, increased stamina. Nothing really too special here. It does give you more stamina, but the main reason is to unlock increased speed when you get that at level 24. When you kill Radamant in Act 2, you want to unlock Leap here, and at level 15 and 16, you want to build up Howl and Taunt here, and then at level 17, you want to save your point, because at level 18, now you can unlock Leap Attack and Battle Cry at the same time. Leap Attack is required to go later on into Whirlwind, but also it's so you can move around in different places. For example, the Arcane Sanctuary or the River of Flame, you can actually leap over the rivers and the weird terrain areas in this game. So you won't have Teleport, but you will have Leap Attack to help you get through some of those situations. Battle Cry, on the other hand, is a really amazing war cry because when you use it near monsters, it's going to drastically reduce their damage as well as their defense. I believe it's 25% damage and 50% defense, which is a huge deal to increase your chance to hit as well as your survivability. So picking up Battle Cry is very important at level 18. At level 19, you want to pick up Shout, and at level 20, you want to pick up Double Throw. From 21 to 23, you want to save your points because at 24, you're going to unlock Frenzy, increased speed, and Battle Orders all at the same time. At level 25, you want to pick up both Frenzy and Battle Orders again. Iswal, you want to save your points. That way at 26 and 27, you can do the same thing again by putting a point into both Frenzy and Battle Orders. At level 28, you can pick up Iron Skin, and then save your point at 29, because at 30, now you want to pick up Battle Command and Natural Resistance. At level 31, you want to pick up Find Potion, that way you can pick up Find Item at 32. This is a really important skill because whenever you kill a monster, you can use Find Item on it, which is basically giving you a second chance to find items on that monster. It's really only worth using once you have a few plus skill items, for example 2 Spirit Swords, which will allow your Find Item to be level 5, because it quickly spikes up in chance to find an item, and when it's only skill level 1, it's like a 13% chance. So I wouldn't really use it on every monster. I think you should only use Find Item on bosses, so boss packs basically if you find a group of bosses. So Find Item, super important in specific situations. Once you have all of these key skills, now you can max out Frenzy and then max out your Mace Mastery. Eventually, later on, after you've maxed out both of those, you want to pick up 1 point into Berserk, and to do this, you need to get some other skills such as Concentrate, etc. This is important because Berserk causes some of your physical damage to turn into magic damage, which allows you to kill any monsters in Hell mode which happen to be immune to physical. So Berserk is really important for killing physical immunities. Additionally, after this, you want to put 11 points into Howl, because Howl, the way it works is that it takes your character level plus your skill level of Howl and puts it together. So for example, if you are level 70 and Howl is level 11, that's level 81. And if this is higher than the current monster level, it will allow them to get scared and run away. If the monster level is higher than those two combined, the Howl skill will not work. So when you're going into Magic Find areas or areas in Hell where monsters are like level 80, you basically need a higher level than 80. So if you're level 70 and you have 11 points, that will be 81, you will now be able to fear most Hell monsters. Some areas like the Pit where you go to Magic Find, monsters are level 85. Some of the bosses are level 87 as well, so because of this you need an 88 total. So with a couple of plus skill items, you're level 70 or higher, and then the 11 skills into Howl, you should hopefully get up to about 88 Howl, which will allow you to fear everything except for the bosses themselves, which is really important if you're trying to focus on magic finding, which honestly you only need to kill certain monsters such as the boss and its minions. So because of that, you want to skip most minions, and that's why Howl is so important. It's also really important because if you're playing a build like Frenzy, you can't afford to have a bunch of monsters on top of you because you can only kill one at a time and you're just going to take way too much damage. So if you're able to Howl them away, this will allow you to not only survive much better, but you'll also be able to single out those main monsters as I mentioned. So because of this, you do not need to prioritize battle orders big time. A lot of people like to max out battle orders right away. This really only matters on multiplayer when you're buffing like 8 other players. But when you're playing solo, such as on single player, you don't need battle orders as much. You can use Howl to survive and put all of your points into DPS like the Frenzy or Whirlwind and the Mace Mastery or whatever mastery you're picking. I know some people might disagree with that, but trust me, once you go Howl, you'll never go back to battle orders right away. You do max out battle orders afterwards, but just not right away. And finally, once you've done that, you've maxed out your Mace Mastery, your Frenzy, or Whirlwind. You've maxed out your, well not maxed out, but you've put enough points into Howl so you can fear everything, and you've maxed out your battle orders. Now you can max out Find Item just to maximize your magic finding. Now, if you're choosing to go the Whirlwind Barb, you want to still level up as Frenzy, and then find a good time to respec into Whirlwind. Usually this will happen when you're at least level 30 and you've also found a really good weapon. Now, I did test out Whirlwind as soon as I hit 30, and I was using a Malice Maul, but it's kind of mediocre, so I wouldn't really respec until maybe 35. One of the reasons why is because a level 1 Whirlwind, it does minus 50% damage. So basically you're only doing 50% weapon damage when you have a level 1 Whirlwind. But after a few points, it starts to build up and go into positive damage. So basically Whirlwind is kind of mediocre for the first few levels, and it misses often, especially if you have a mediocre weapon, but it is doable. So if you're one of those try-hard Whirlwind Barbs where you want to go it as soon as you hit 30, it is possible. You just have to have a proper build, and we've got that here on the right. So if you're going the Whirlwind build, once again, hit level 30 with the Frenzy double swing build, and then you want to respec into Whirlwind. When you do this, max out your Whirlwind first, then put about 9 points into Mace Mastery, then 1 into Increased Speed, 1 into Natural Resistance, then move over to War Cries, pick up 1 into Battle Command. This will also get you your Battle Orders and Shout, then pick up 1 to Battle Cry so you can hit monsters more often, and then finally 1 into Find Item. The rest of the points can go into battle orders since that's really important. Now after this, as I mentioned earlier, you do not need a high level battle orders. The only thing that's really annoying about it is that it doesn't last as long. It lasts like 1 minute, same with battle command, it lasts like 50 seconds. So it is a little annoying having a low level battle orders for that reason, but as soon as you start picking up items with plus skill like 2 spirits, or 2 spears with 2 to war cries on it, or your myth armor which is 2 to barb skills, your war cries will start lasting longer and you don't have to worry as much. So because of all of these different items you want to rely on later in Nightmare, I recommend not putting a bunch of points into battle orders, only what I mentioned here, which is put all those points in, rest in the battle orders, and then 31 plus you want to max out Whirlwind first, then max out your Mace Mastery, put 1 point into Berserk after this, so you can actually kill physical immunes in Hell mode, and then 11 points into Howl, just like the Fury build, and then max out your battle orders finally, and then max out Find Item. Now for the Frenzy build, you do not need to go this in Hell mode in order to complete it. I still did it with regular maces, but if you prefer swords and you just want a better setup overall, you can farm 2 phase blades in Hell mode, and then once you have those, you can switch over to maxing Frenzy, your sword mastery instead of mace mastery, and then pick up your typical support skills. Just make sure that your Howl level is added with your character level to equal 88. That way you can fear all minions, including boss minions, and then you can focus down bosses. After this, you can max out battle orders and Find Item. So the builds are very similar. The only difference is that you replace Frenzy with Whirlwind, and if you want to go sword spec or a different spec, you just replace the Mace Mastery with that specific mastery. It's pretty much overall the same though. Alright, so starting at normal Act 1, the Barbarian is going to need a lot of gold for repairing weapons and item charges as you go throughout the game. So the best way to generate gold early on and throughout is to keep an eye out for class items such as wands, scepters, and staves. If these items have class bonuses on them, they will sell for a lot of gold. If they don't have class bonuses, however they are magic quality, put these in your stash for later and I'll show you why. Now, speaking of scepters, the scepter is also your best weapon to use in Act 1. So if you don't find a scepter in the Den of Evil when you complete it, you should go to Akara and buy 2 of them to dual wield, and also make sure that 2 scepters that you buy do not have paladin skills on them, because this will make them cost only a few hundred gold. Much cheaper than when they do have skills on them. If any of them have sockets as well, make sure to put some gems in them to further increase your damage. Barbarian helmets are another item you also want to keep an eye out for. The Barb helms are great because they can give you bonuses to some of your skills, such as Mace Mastery, Battle Orders, Frenzy, and Whirlwind. You can also make rune words in these items if they have the right amount of sockets and are normal quality. If you can find a decent Barb helmet with sockets, save the sockets for when you reach level 19, so you can put any Ral runes that you find into it. The Ral runes are going to be used to get fire resistance against Shamans, Venom Lords, and Diablo himself in Acts 3 and 4. It's really important to have high fire resistances, so if you don't find a Barb helmet with sockets, you can always just use a random helmet that you find. Also, whenever you're in town in Act 1, check Charcy for a 2-socketed armor and 2-socketed helmet. The 2-socketed armor will be used to craft the Stealth Rune Word, which is going to be your best armor until Nightmare. The 2-socketed helmet will be used to craft the Nadir Rune Word, which is going to be a good helmet throughout normal. You can make the Nadir in a 2-socketed Barm helmet as well, but if you don't find one with 2 sockets, then just use any random helmet, such as one from Charcy, which is just always a good backup. When you get to the Black Marsh, you'll want to start doing tower runs. A tower run is pretty easy. Just take the Black Marsh waypoint, find the Forgotten Tower, and kill the Countess on the 5th floor. The Countess is the best place to find runes this early into the game. Barbarians will need a Tyr rune and L rune to make Steel, and a Tal rune and Eth rune to make Stealth. If you're not tired of Countess runs, I really recommend also farming an Ith rune, L rune, and Eth rune to make Malice, and a Neph rune and Tyr rune to make Nadir. Basically, the Barbarian needs a lot of rune words to make his life easy, so I highly recommend farming Countess for quite a while. It's also pretty good experience and gold. The Steel and Malice are best made in a flail due to its attack speed, high maximum damage, and longer range. If you plan on going Whirlwind, you can also make Malice in a 2-handed weapon, such as a Maul. These weapons should be able to get you to Nightmare Act 1, so if you don't find any better items on the way in normal, don't worry too much. Before you engage Andoriel, drink a few antidote potions for increased poison resistance. There are usually 2 dark shaman groups just before Andoriel, so you should kill them before engaging her, otherwise they will quickly revive all the dark ones nearby, and this will make it harder to focus down Andoriel. The first thing you want to do when you reach Act 2 is buy a belt from Farah if you didn't get one from Charcy already. Then you want to buy 2 flails from her to replace your scepters. It doesn't matter what flails you pick up, just as long as they're regular flails, because they're way better than scepters. You can also leave the town and re-enter to refresh the items she sells if you don't find any flails in the first place. Next, hire a mercenary from Grays. Act 2 mercenaries are by far the best, as they deal the most damage, can tank for you, and they provide an aura that buffs you and your party. For the Barbarian, I recommend hiring an offensive mercenary because his blessed aim will increase your attack rating. As you go through Act 2, keep checking Farah for 2-socketed flails and 3-socketed flails. You're going to need quite a few of them, because 2-socketed flails are used to craft the Steel rune word, and if you find an Amn rune early on like I did, the Strength rune word is also good as well. The 3-socketed flails are used to craft the Malice rune word, and later on in Nightmare you can make 2 black rune words. Make sure you have 2 3-socketed flails by the time you finish Act 5, so you have them for the black flails as soon as you get the runes in Nightmare. Once you get the Heraldric Cube, you can now reroll the scepters, wands, and staves you saved earlier by cubing one with 3 chipped gems. If they reroll with skills on them, they will sell for tons of gold, but you should also save them in your stash until later acts. Items can sell for up to 10,000 gold in Act 2, but the maximum amount items sell for increases by 5,000 with each act, up to 35,000 gold in total, so it's not best to sell them right away, and you really want to hold on to it if you can. Before entering the chamber to face Duriel, give you and your mercenary a few thawing potions. The increased cold resistance will prevent you from getting deleted by Duriel. When you enter the chamber, rush Duriel so your mercenary doesn't become the tank. This is important because mercenaries add a lot of DPS, and you're naturally tanky as a barbarian. As long as you have rejuvenation potions at the ready, and you drink thawing potions before, you should be fine. Don't forget to keep Battlecry on Duriel to reduce his damage and defense. Battlecry makes a world of difference against bosses and difficult monsters. So now that you're in Act 3, Heraldli should be right beside you. Buy a poleaxe from him if your mercenary needs a new weapon. Heraldli can also sell 3-socketed mauls, and it was shocking to see him sell me one on the first try when I entered. A Malice Maul can make for a decent starting weapon when you switch to Whirlwind, but don't rely on Heraldli too much, because I'm pretty sure that as soon as you hit level 20, he only sells magic items, and in order to make a rune word, you cannot make it in a magic item. You can start checking Ormus for a staff with teleport charges. The teleport staff helps get over annoying terrain, can be used to reposition yourself and your mercenary, and it also helps speed up travel time, especially during Magic Find runs. If you don't have the gold for the teleport staff, you can always just shop in a later act. You can also start checking for a wand with life tap charges. It makes many fights easier because it allows you to massively heal with your attacks, but you don't have to get it right now because there's plenty of time to shop for it in Act 5. If you're not level 23 by the time you reach the Travancore, then I recommend doing temple runs. Take the Kurast Bazaar waypoint and kill the boss pack inside the ruined temple. Continue doing this until you're at least level 24. This is important because you want to be at least level 23 in Act 4 and at least level 25 in Act 5 to avoid severe experience penalties. I recommend 24 because the extra level or 2 makes a big difference in your chance to hit. When facing the council in Travancore, pull a few away from the main area so you're not quickly overwhelmed by council members and hydras. If you have decent fire resistance, you can also just fight them one at a time in the doorway, just like in Diablo 1 days, and just ignore the hydras for the most part, but your mercenary might not like that too much. When fighting Mephisto, drink thawing and antidote potions before engaging him to reduce the damage of some of his spells. If you have a life tap wand by now, curse him with life tap so you and your mercenary massively heal off your attacks. Keep in mind that if you have life tap, you cannot Battlecry because those two overlap. The key to making Act 4 easy is to stack fire resistance and have a Nadir helmet. If you make the Nadir helmet, you can use Cloak of Shadows to blind the Seal Guardians and then focus down one at a time. You can also just focus down the main boss and then quickly run away. Either way works. Diablo can be difficult because his lightning breath can kill you in a second if you don't move quick enough. To make matters worse, his melee attack also freezes you, so if he follows up his melee attack with a lightning breath, the slow is almost impossible to avoid. For this reason, you may want to have thawing potions in your belt, or keep it in your inventory and leave your inventory open, so you can quickly drink a thawing potion when you get frozen. If you found any unique items with Crushing Blow at this point, make sure to equip them because they deal massive damage to bosses. When you first get to Act 5, make sure you're at least level 25 and don't buy anything. The cost of everything in Act 5 is doubled until you complete the first quest, so you'll want to go back to Act 4 to buy your potions. When you kill Shank the Overseer to complete the first quest, the item prices go back to normal and you'll unlock the ability to socket an item, which I recommend saving for later. Once you've killed Shank and grabbed the Frigid Highlands waypoint, I highly recommend doing Eldritch runs until at least level 30 or until you get your Life Tap wand from Mala. Eldritch runs are more efficient than Bale runs on single player or solo, especially as a Barbarian, because they're much easier and they're so fast you should be able to check Mala at the start of every new game for a Life Tap wand. Mala can also sell spears that grant 1 to Warcry skills, which can be used on weapon swap for when you need to use Warcries or find item. Once you're satisfied with your level and have your Life Tap wand, you can continue on to finish Act 5 and normal. If you find a partisan in the Arya Plateau or the later parts of Act 5, you can use your socket quest on it to give it 4 sockets, allowing you to make insight, which is incredible for Whirlwind Barbs or your mercenary. When you reach the Aryat summit, make sure to leave a town portal just outside in the Ancient's Way. Activating the Ancient's fight removes all town portals in the summit, and if you open a town portal during the fight will reset, so you want your town portal outside just in case you die. Focus Madog first since he is the weakest of the 3, then Talak since his whirlwind is deadly. Remember to keep your mercenary alive with potions so he can DPS and tank at least one of the Ancients. When you clear the throne room of monsters, Bale will laugh and 5 waves will spawn. The waves are much more difficult as Frenzy because Bale's curse will slow your attack speed and reduce your damage. The best way to mitigate the curse uptime is to fight the minions in the bottom half of the room out of the range of his curse. You can also Life Tap to help yourself survive, but Wave 2 is going to be a little difficult because they really don't like to move outside of the range. Ultimately, Wave 5 is extremely difficult for both Whirlwind and Frenzy because they hard counter melee builds. Their stun, knockback, and massive damage is just too much to handle. You can slowly kite them out of the room to prevent getting surrounded, but I find it much more efficient to just skip them entirely. To skip this wave, or any other wave for that matter, lure them out of the main throne room, run around the big block, and then sprint or teleport back into the throne room. If the minions don't follow you in there, the wave will skip and you will be able to proceed to Bale. As Whirlwind, I was able to handle all of the waves since Whirlwind isn't crippled as badly compared to Frenzy. When fighting Bale, drink thawing potions beforehand to reduce his cold damage and equip any items with Crushing Blow. By defeating normal Bale, you can now open the secret Cal level in normal by cubing a Tome of Town Portal with Wurtzleg in Act 1. At this point, you should be at least level 30 and you can go into Nightmare, but if you're a newer player, I recommend farming normal Bale and Eldritch until at least level 35 just to be safe since you can get extra skills and your chance to hit is much higher. Bale and Eldritch runs can get you into the 40s, so it's up to you when you're ready for Nightmare. So now that we're ready for Nightmare, there are so many items that can help us progress through both Nightmare and Hell, so I'll cover what I can. Crafted Blood Gloves have guaranteed Crushing Blow and Life Leech, and they can also get other great stats like attack speed and resistances. To craft Blood Gloves, you need to cube a pair of Magic Heavy, Sharkskin, or Vampire Bone gloves with a Nephrune, Perfect Ruby, and any jewel. If you don't have the gloves, you can buy them from Charcy and Geed. Starting in Nightmare, the vendors will also start selling gloves with 20% increased attack speed. Frenzy Barbarians should keep an eye out for these gloves whenever they're in town, so they can hit their attack speed breakpoint. For more information on Barbarian attack speeds, I recommend checking the attack speed calculator down below. Lore is a rune word crafted by socketing Ore and Soul into a 2-socketed helmet. This is a quick and easy way to get 1 to all skills, lightning resistance, and damage reduction. Myth is a rune word crafted by socketing Hel, Am, and Nef into a 3-socketed armor. An easily accessible 2 to all barb skills makes Myth a nice armor until you get Smoke or Treachery later in Nightmare. Strength is a rune word crafted by socketing Am and Tyr into a 2-socketed weapon. Barbs should craft Strength if they don't have a black yet and they have a spare 2-socketed flail. Strength is also a great polearm for mercenaries to swap to when fighting against bosses. Black is a rune word crafted by socketing Thal, Io, and Nef into a 3-socketed club, hammer, or mace. Barbs should craft 2 blacks in 3-socketed flails so they can smash through the first few Nightmare acts. Even if you find a weapon better than black, they are still powerful against bosses because 80% Crushing Blow is extremely overpowered. Insight is a rune word crafted by socketing Ral, Tyr, Tal, and Soul into a 4-socketed polearm. Keep in mind, Insight cannot be crafted in spears, which is a common rookie mistake. This is one of the best weapons for your mercenary early on due to its high damage and meditation aura, which boosts your mana regeneration. Whirlwind Barbs can also use this weapon early on if they don't have a better weapon. If you want to make an insight as early as possible, you can farm the normal Cal level for a partisan, and then use your socket quest to guarantee 4 sockets. Just keep in mind, if you are going Mace Mastery, you're not going to benefit with this Polearm, so you'll have to go Polearm Mastery and consider whether you want to be a Polearm Whirlwind Barb or a Mace Mastery Whirlwind Barb. Spirit is a rune word crafted by socketing Tal, Thal, Ort, and Am into a 4-socketed sword. You can shop spears with 2 or 3 to war cries from different vendors, but until you get those, spirit swords are a great way to boost the skills of your war cries and find item. The main difficulty will be finding 4-socketed swords. Treachery is crafted by socketing Shale, Thal, and Lem into a 3-socketed armor. The Venom proc adds 300 poison damage to melee attacks, and the Fade proc increases all resistances by 60, as well as a hidden 15% physical damage reduction bonus. This makes Treachery one of the best armors for both Barbarians and Mercenaries. Smoke is a rune word crafted by socketing Nef and Lum into a 2-socketed armor. The 50 res makes Smoke a great alternative to Treachery. Lawbringer is a rune word crafted by socketing Am, Lem, and Co. into 3-socketed swords, hammers, and scepters. Lawbringer is one of the best Frenzy Barb weapons going into Hell mode. The Decrepify slows enemies, reduces their damage done, and increases the physical damage they take by 50%. The Sanctuary Aura also knocks back and damages undead, and allows you to pierce through any physical resistance the undead have. If you plan to go through Hell as Frenzy, you should definitely make a Lawbringer. Passion is a rune word crafted by socketing Dol, Ort, Eld, and Lem into a 4-socketed weapon. The attack speed, bonus damage against undead, and high enhanced damage makes Passion a potential upgrade. The only issue with it is that it requires a Lem rune, which you already need 2 of for Treachery and Lawbringer. Obedience is a rune word crafted by socketing Hel, Ko, Thal, Eth, and Fal into a 5-socketed polearm. The high damage, crushing blow, high fire damage, and attack rating granted from enchant, resistances, and faster hit recovery makes Obedience a godly budget weapon for both mercenaries as well as Whirlwind Barbarians. If you can't find a 5-socketed partisan, you can use your socket quest on a partisan found in the later acts of Nightmare, such as acts 2, 3, 4, and 5, and the Nightmare Cal level. The only downside to using an Obedience partisan is that you won't have Polearm Mastery unless you respec. Other than the Lum, Lem, Fal, Ko, and the runes required for these items drop quite commonly from the Nightmare Countess, so I recommend farming her right away as soon as you get into Act 1 to make your 2 black flails, lore, myth, and when you find a 4-socketed polearm, and insight for your mercenary. With the 80% crushing blow from your 2 black flails, you will be able to easily farm Nightmare bosses for better gear. When you get to Act 2, I recommend replacing your mercenary with a new one. You can hire a defensive Nightmare Act 2 mercenary because his Holy Freeze aura will slow the attack and movement speeds of enemies around him, but honestly I recommend an offensive Nightmare Act 2 mercenary because his Might aura will increase your physical damage done by at least 200%. Okay, let's talk about Nightmare Mephisto. If you are truly committed to playing a Barbarian into Hell mode solo, then you definitely want to farm Nightmare Mephisto for better gear. I highly recommend re-rolling your map until you get Durance of Hate level 3 next to the waypoint. To re-roll your map, create a game in a different difficulty, in this case create a game in Normal, leave, and then create a game in Nightmare. This should reset all of your maps, so you'll want to take the Durance of Hate level 2 waypoint and check to see if level 3 is close by. If the map is not to your liking, repeat the process until you're satisfied. The first required item is anything with Cannot Be Frozen. In Hell mode, a lot of monsters begin to freeze, so as a melee character it is crucial to go into Hell mode with any item that cannot be frozen. Ravenfrost is the best choice because it provides attack rating, dexterity, cold absorb, and cannot be frozen, but it's very rare, so if you give up finding one, another item will have to do. The next required item is pretty much any weapon that's better than the Black Flail, while also benefiting from Mace Mastery. For Frenzy, I recommend Alder's Rhythm or Flesh Render. For Whirlwind, I recommend Bone Snap, Blood Tree Wood Stump, or Rib Cracker. Other than the Blood Tree, you can also find these items from Nightmare Andorial, but at worse odds, so if you want to get one of these upgrades as soon as possible, Nightmare Andorial is a good place to start. I personally did about 10 Andorial runs before deciding to just rush to Nightmare Mephisto to farm him instead, because I also wanted to get the chance at other big items, such as Ravenfrost, Gore Rider, and Vampire Gaze. On a final note with these weapon upgrades, it's really important to know that you can actually upgrade these to the next weapon level. With Aral, Soul, and Perfect Emerald, you can upgrade a normal unique weapon into an exceptional unique weapon. You definitely want to upgrade your Bone Snap Maul into a War Club since the runes are just easy to find and the benefits are too great. For exceptional weapons, you can use a Lum, Pole, and Perfect Emerald to upgrade it from an exceptional unique weapon into an elite unique weapon. These runes are much more rare, but if you can get them, it's a big deal. I used this recipe to upgrade a Rib Cracker from a Quarterstaff to a Stalagmite, and it was able to easily beat Hell Mode. The next list of items are not required, but can also drop off Nightmare Mephisto, as well as Nightmare Diablo, Bale, and possibly even Eldritch as well. String of Years is great for the Life Leech and damage reduction. Dwarf Star is great for the Fire Absorb, life, and damage reduction. Gore Rider is a rare drop, but if you find them, these are your best in slot boots. Talrash's helmet has dual leech and resistances, which makes it great for both barbarians and mercenaries. Several Immortal King pieces can drop, which are nice upgrades and can help you build toward the full set if that's one of your goals. Once you have a decent weapon and an item with Cannot Be Frozen, you should be able to get through Act 4 and begin farming Eldritch to level 60. You can try and do Ancients at level 40 and run Nightmare Bales instead, but I personally don't think it's worth it. It's going to take so much longer and be much more difficult. Nightmare Ancients requires level 40 to complete. I recommend rushing to a corner so you hopefully only have to fight 1 or 2 of the Ancients at the same time. If you get all 3, it's not the end, just life tap them if you need it to survive. I ended up taking a little damage, not too much, so I just used Battle Cry instead of life tap. If you do the same, make sure to heal your mercenary with potions or life tap just to be safe. After the Ancients, be careful of Lightning Souls and Undead Dolls when you're heading into Bale's throne room. If you run into Souls, you should grab the Worldstone Keep waypoint and then create new games until you get a new game without them. The Dolls aren't as bad as the Souls, it's just that they explode for massive damage when they die, so if you're in melee range, it can be very dangerous. Bale and his minion should be pretty easy to deal with, but I do recommend luring out Wave 5 out of the room to skip the wave, since they hard counter melee classes. Nightmare Bales can get you to at least level 78, so feel free to run Bale for more experience. Personally, I opted to skip Bale runs and instead focus on farming Nightmare Mephisto, Nightmare Diablo, Eldritch, and also Nightmare Cows, so I could get the important runes and uniques, and also the socketed items such as my Tyrant Club, for my block, which you guys will see in a second, the Obedience Partisan, etc, etc. So if you want to farm out gear and not prioritize experience, you can do Mephisto, Diablo, Eldritch, and Cows, and if you want to add in Bale as well, you can do that. Alright guys, so we're going to take a look at what my Nightmare Barbarian looks like going into Hell Mode. So with the Frenzy build here, we've got the gloves here with Crushing Blow, the crafted blood gloves, lightning resistance. We've got a random ring here for the mana, fire resistance, and attack rating. String of Ears for that life leech and damage reduction. The important Ravenfrost here, which I transferred from a different character because I couldn't find one and we're short on time here. The Sanders boots here for the attack rating and the strength and dex. Black in a Tyrant Club, which is an elite weapon. We got the Spiked Club, the I forget what the second one is, and then we have the Tyrant Club. And we've got the Telling of Beads here for the skills and resistances. The black is really important for Crushing Blow. The Talrash's helmet here for Life Leech, Mana Leech, Life, Mana, all resistances. Treachery, a really important piece because of the attack rating and the high survivability from Fade. And our main weapon, the Alder's Rhythm, which I have a Shaolin for attack speed and an Ethrune to increase my chance to hit on monsters. For my War Cries, when I need to give myself battle orders and stuff, I have 2 Spirits, or you can find 2 or 3 War Cry Spears from vendors like Mala. Mercenary has an Obedience. Barbarians that are Whirlwind can also go here with the Obedience here, the Treachery armor for the Mercenary, and a Tal helmet as well. So overall, that's my gear. The only thing I would change here if I'm Whirlwind is I would switch over to a Rib Cracker. I have this Lawbringer here as well. If you are lucky enough to find a Lemrune, I recommend the Lawbringer. So the Alder's Weapon and the Tyrant Club, the Black Tyrant Club, that will work in pits, for example, if you want to farm the Hell pits. But if you want to go further into Hell mode, like Act 3, Act 4, Act 5, I highly recommend picking up a Lawbringer. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you can switch to swords if you farm the pits in Hell mode. This will allow you to farm Phase Blades, so you can switch over to a Lawbringer and some other sword if you can find one. And that's really what you want to focus on here. So a main weapon and then your Lawbringer. That's ideally what you want. But if you can't get that Lawbringer, then a black is perfectly fine because Crushing Blow is insane. For Whirlwind, you want to build either towards a bigger mace, or if you're going polearm, so if you're running an Obedience Partisan or an Insight Partisan, your upgrade will be an Obedience Great Poleaxe from the pits, which you'll have to farm. But if you stick to maces like I did, you can either go a Rib Cracker, which is what I recommend, or an upgraded Bone Snap, or your Blood Tree Wood Stump, which I mentioned. So overall, that's what my Nightmare Barbarian looks like. If you guys have any questions, just feel free to leave a comment down below. There's a lot of weapons you can choose from, but there's a few here which I really recommend. Alright, so when it comes to Hell mode, your biggest issue is going to be your chance to hit and your damage output. The biggest way to increase your chance to hit is to increase your character level, which is why I recommend going into Hell mode around level 65 to 70. For damage output, I mentioned several weapons earlier in the Nightmare section, but you may want to farm for better weapons if you want a much smoother time getting through Hell mode. For Whirlwind, I found the upgraded Bone Snap and the Blood Tree Wood Stump to be a little lackluster in Hell mode. I would only deal with these two weapons if you want to farm out, say, Hell Pits and Hell Andorial just to get a better weapon. But otherwise, you really should use something like a Rib Cracker or Obedience Partisan, which were much better able to handle Hell mode. However, I do also recommend, if you can, upgrading that Rib Cracker, or, of course, getting a great poleaxe from the pits in Hell mode to make a better Obedience. If you can get an upgraded Rib Cracker or a great poleaxe Obedience, you'll be set to beat and farm Hell mode much more efficiently. For Frenzy, on the other hand, my Alder's Rhythm and Black Tyrant Club were able to farm the pits in Hell, but after that, I really just found it lackluster. When I replaced my Black Tyrant Club with a Lawbringer Battle Hammer, I was able to beat Hell mode so much easier. The Alder's Rhythm is fine, it's really just that black weapon that you need to replace with the Lawbringer. If you can get a Lawbringer on your Frenzy Barb, you'll be doing so much better. So to summarize my experience in Hell mode, I recommend upgraded Rib Cracker or Obedience and a Partisan to start, or Great Poleaxe Obedience if you're Whirlwind, and a Lawbringer Battle Hammer with an Alder's Rhythm or Flesh Render if you're Frenzy. For me, I ended up beating Hell mode all the way to Act 5 with an upgraded Rib Cracker, and I also ended up beating it with a Frenzy version with the Lawbringer Battle Hammer and Alder's Rhythm. Once again, if you don't go Maces and you choose to go Polearms with the Partisan, that's fine. Obedience Partisan was doing just fine killing Hell Trivincle and Hell Chaos, so you can go that if you don't want to get that great Poleaxe. So as I mentioned, if you also want to farm Hell Act 1 for better gear, you don't even have to finish the rest of Hell right away. You can jump straight into Hell Pit farming with these weapons I mentioned. Not only is the Pit very popular for finding some of the best items in the game, it's also one of the few places where you can find some of the high-end items which are very limited in areas in the game, and the Pit is one of those limited areas. If you wanted to, you could actually farm out your full gear set only doing pits. It's kind of boring, but if you want to just get a good start into Hell mode, you can farm the pits for a while until you get a better weapon, maybe a helmet or something. You can even farm your full entire Immortal King set in the pits. So when you're going into Hell mode, let's talk about the actual strategy. The main strategy here is to howl everything and focus down bosses. Once you've killed the boss, switch to your Warcry weapons so your find item chance is much higher. Use your find item and then move on to the next boss. If you want some extra experience and some more corpses to find item, you can also kill the boss with his minions as well. Also, be aware that if you have cold damage or slain monsters rest in peace, such as Ravenfrost or Lawbringer, you will find out that some of your monsters that you kill will not be able to get find item. Depending on your gear, it's a sacrifice you have to make in order to farm efficiently in Hell mode. You might even want to rush straight to Andorial and add her to your pit farming. She's not too difficult to deal with, especially since you can just howl all of the minions away and just focus her down with Life Tap and Crushing Blow. If you're choosing a path to get the better gear first, Frenzy Barbs will want to find Phase Blades. Phase Blades are one of the fastest weapons in the game, and they are indestructible by nature, making them one of the best weapon bases for Frenzy Barbs. Ideally, you'll want to find a unique lightsaber to use with your Lawbringer, but if you don't find a lightsaber, Passion should also make a fine alternative. Once you have two good Phase Blades, respec into a Sword Mastery version of the Frenzy Barb. Here are some of the recipes you can use to get your Phase Blades much quicker. If you find a low quality or cracked Phase Blade, cube it with an Eld and any chipped gem to upgrade it to normal quality. If you have a normal quality Phase Blade, cube it with Ral, Am, and Perfect Amethyst to give it a random amount of sockets, and you end up getting a Phase Blade with 3 or 4 sockets. For Whirlwind Barbs, if you're running Polearm Mastery, farm for a great poleaxe to make the Obedience in. You can also socket them and use the low quality upgrade to normal quality, as I just mentioned before, for the Phase Blade. If you chose to stick with the Maze Mastery like I did, you can farm for an IK Maul, or the runes to upgrade your Rib Cracker if you haven't upgraded it yet. The first main challenge in Hell mode is usually Travancore. This time in Hell mode, make sure to kill the Hierophants and Zealots surrounding the main area. If left alive, the Hierophants will heal your council members to full, plus you don't want to get overwhelmed. For the Hell Ancients, you need to be at least level 60 to complete it. Before you fight, drop a bunch of potions on the ground just in case you need them. When you spawn the Ancients, quickly mouse over them and check their modifiers. If any of the Ancients have Immune to Physical, Stone Skin, Mana Burn, or Cursed, you should probably reset the fight. I found the Ancients easy enough to take all 3 on, even without life tap, but if you find them difficult, start the fight and charge to a corner, and when they follow, charge across to the other side. Hopefully that distance causes only 1 or 2 of them to follow you, so you should be able to kill them without issue. If you still have an issue, you can always use your life tap wand instead of Battle Cry. When it comes to Bale's minions, the Decrepify from your Lawbringer should make them very easy to deal with. The only difficulty will be wave 5 because they can't be feared by your Howl. However, it is doable if you kite them in between your strikes so you're never surrounded and you can still hit one at a time. If any of the waves prove difficult for you, you can always use the skipping strategy. So overall, that's the Barbarian guide. I did all of this in an entire day, leveling the bar from level 1 all the way to making this guide. It took a lot of time, a lot of effort. I wanted to make sure I did not let you Barbarian fans down, since within a few hours, it's actually 10 p.m. here, and 8 a.m. my time is when Diablo 2 Resurrected comes out. So I spent, I don't know how long, all day on this, to make sure that comes out hours before release. I hope you guys found this useful. I gotta tell you guys, playing this Barbarian made me a Barbarian fan. I'm used to multiplayer where everyone's a Source Paladin and farming efficiently. The Barbarian, when you take up that competitive mindset and you just relax and enjoy the gearing process, the game is so much more fun as a Barbarian because you get to see all these cool weapons and seeing yourself upgrade. Being able to howl everything away and focus down a boss in Pit is just absolutely fun. It's no wonder some people enjoy the Pit Zerker, which relies on Enigma teleporting you right to the pit, and then you kill something and then find item. It's so much fun. This is one of my favorite builds in the game, and as I mentioned earlier, I will be covering the Singer eventually in the future, so stay tuned for that. And overall, I hope you guys enjoyed this guide. I'm not a Barbarian expert, so if there are any Barb experts out there, feel free to leave any tips or information I missed down in the comments below. I hope you guys enjoyed this guide, and I will see you guys in the remaster.
Greetings. I am impressed, mortals. You have overcome the greatest challenge this world has ever faced and defeated the last of the prime evils. However, we are too late to save the World Stone. Bale's destructive touch has corrupted it completely. Given enough time, the World Stone's energies will drain away, and the barriers between the worlds will shatter. The powers of hell will flood into this sanctuary and eradicate your people and everything you've labored to build. Therefore, I must destroy the corrupted World Stone before the powers of hell take root. This act will change your world forever, with consequences even I cannot foresee. However, it is the only way to ensure mankind's survival. Go now, mortal. I have opened a portal that will lead you to safety. May the eternal light shine upon you and your descendants for what you've done this day. The continued survival of mankind is your legacy. Above all else, you have earned a rest from this endless battle.